Hello, and welcome to the Product Insiders LinkedIn Live series, where we interview product leaders and learn how they leverage customer insights to navigate tough product decisions. I'm your host, Zach Lyons, managing partner of Agile Innovation Advisors. And as always, if you're joining us live today, please enter your location in the chat so we know who is with us. Today, our special guest is Jim Poisson, Senior Director of Product Management and Training at Scale at ServiceNow. We'll be asking Jim some questions, but if you have any specific questions for him, please enter them in the chat and we'll get to them as they come in. So with that, let's begin. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here, Zach. This is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited to hear your story. So my first question for you is, let's set the scene a little bit. It's thinking about a tough product decision that you had to navigate. Can you please tell us a little bit about your role at the time and a little bit about the situation?
Sure. Yeah, I was a product management within an organization, and we had been acquired, like most folks go through. And as part of that acquisition, we had to remediate out competitive technology. We were using vendors that our new company didn't want us to use anymore. Now, granted, this was about 2 to 3 years after the acquisition when contracts started running out, but we had to take an action to remove that technology, as well as to, all right, how do we position this to our clients, and how do we give them something a little bit more that they haven't had before?
And so were you a product manager for the portfolio of products, or what was your role?
Sure. I was a product manager working on our learning management system. And in this particular case, the technology in question was our reporting engine. So we leveraged a third-party technology. I think it was Crystal Reports, if I remember. And I'll just say we were bought by a competitor of Crystal Reports, so we couldn't use that anymore.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the challenge or issue you faced. Like, what were you trying to do or overcome, and what was difficult about it?
Reporting specifically, when you talk about learning management systems, it doesn't seem like it's going to be such of a big deal, or how hard of it can it be. But when you think about our clients, we're talking with people in high compliance and compliance areas. Think healthcare, think manufacturing, and for reporting for them, I remember a conversation with one of my clients, Dan, when we were talking about this change. He worked in the healthcare space, and for him, the reports coming out of their learning management system were key to making sure that that nurse could be on the floor that day. Because if they can't validate that nurse is skilled or trained, or their certifications are in compliance, they can't be helping people. So it was his group, his organization was dependent on the data coming out of our systems, where we were tracking all of this, that they flowed into other systems in his operation. And it's the same thing we heard from some of our manufacturing colleagues, where I remember one client was talking about welding. If you're not certified, there's a variety of different ways to weld. I don't know any of them. But if you're not certified in the right way for that airplane part, you can't be working on that airplane day. So that puts the company behind, puts you at risk, all those things. So you don't think reporting is that key, but that's what it was. Now, we also had to do this where I couldn't just swap this overnight. We have to move people over. So it's like, you're changing the engines on the airplane as you're flying. How do you keep this going? Because I can't interrupt my clients' processes in terms of what they're trying to achieve with this data as they're trying to use it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So product manager for this learning management system, and focusing in on the reporting after the acquisition, there was some competitive tools. So trying to figure out which you guys were using one tool of the competitor of the company acquired you. Now you had to reconcile that and figure out, were you just trying to say, hey, we're just going to drop the competitive tool of reporting, the Crystal Reports, and go to this other solution? Or what decision were you trying to make?
So the main decision we had to be, how long is this going to take to transition people? Because we had a variety of standard reports, out of the box reports, canned reports that people could leverage. We knew people weren't necessarily content with that. Everybody always wants to tweak things and customize things just a little bit more for their own company needs, for great reasons. They had to do this. So we ended up putting a plan together, for we're going to take a year to migrate everybody off
Oh
because we
wow.
knew we could, we had to build the new feature functionality, then start rolling it out to get people to adopting it. So to do that, we started looking at like what report are you going to build first? Those types of questions. So we started looking at the data. We had all the data that you can imagine in terms of I can tell you what reports were run, how often they're run, how long did they take to process, who was running them. So I knew what the popular reports are. So those we started targeting some of those popular reports. But then after talking to folks like a couple of other clients of mine that stick out, Don and Josh, they really geared it towards or helping us know that that customization piece. So what can we do beyond parity? Yes, we're going to give you the same report, but what can we do better for them? Because that's how we're really going to get people to adopt this journey and maybe accelerate our 1 year timeline. Because that was a goal, but if we could bring that into 9 months, that would have been great, or something even shorter. So we had to build champions. Um, so we started looking at what can we do to customize based on that conversation with Don and Josh. And Josh represented like a number of different clients. He was a consultant, so he worked at a lot of number of our clients, but he was at one particular client at that point. But he had the experience that could represent 10, 12 clients.
Oh,
Um, and
so
hearing
they
from
were
him
kind of
how,
not, they weren't just personas; they were actual people. Okay.
oh yeah, they're real, yeah, real people. Josh was a real person, and he still
Good.
is. Um, and learning from him that it's not in customization to them wasn't so much as we want to do a new calculation, or it was we want the report to be laid out this way. We want these fields on the report, and then Don wanted these fields on the report, and Dan wanted these fields on the report. So it was the data's right. We just needed extra fields or different fields about the data we already had. So it was working with them to understand that need, putting together an offering for them that was different than what we had done before. Again, we had out of the box reports. It had n number of columns. That's what you get. That's what everybody gets. You deal
Mm.
with n number of columns, um, and that was it. This way, again, now becomes that enhancement. This is the enticement to you want to come along on this journey with us. So the new system is going to be better than the old system. It's got all the data, but it's going to have the ways you want to get it out. I think it was even talking to Dan, we realized that in some of these situations, it's I may want columns, but Jim, I want to export it as a CSV because that's going to work better with my downstream process consuming this data. So I
Okay.
know do those nurses belong on the platform. It just makes it easier. And we had scheduling capabilities, but we gave them additional scheduling capabilities. You could run the report multiple times a day, have it sent to an email box that just did it. We also added the ability to put it up in things like an FFTP site. Some of that stuff doesn't sound um, innovative today. Back when
Mm.
we were doing this, it was changing their world of how they could leverage the data in a more faster manner than it was before. So
So how did you? So for people listening, who are in the shoes now, right, of trying to figure
yeah,
out they have a product, let's say, and they're thinking about obviously there's parity or even like I call them table stakes, right? The things that
yeah,
reporting has to do, like you want accurate data, right? That's the sort of table
yeah.
stakes. But then the customization, the ability to tweak the reports to fit the company's workflows is a key differentiator in reporting. What did you do? Like, what insights did you get to help you kind of think about which features to prioritize against others? Like, how did you go about trying to figure that stuff out?
So we were fortunate enough that one of our primary partners, implementation partners, a company called eSkills, helped us with. They run facilitated users. They ran it. We just had to show up. So 4 or 5 times a year, we get to show up, get in front of about 20 to 30 people. Some of them are duplicates, but in the long run, you think 5 groups, 100 people, 100 unique individuals beyond our own user conference. So once this plan was started rolling out, or once we came up with it and started delivering it, we'd go to those user conferences and just start talking to people. This is what's coming, setting people up for, and hearing what their pain points were and understanding what their challenges were. And it was through some of those user groups and all those folks is understanding where the patterns were coming about that customization, about how they wanted to use it. Another one of the conversation points or an idea that came out of one of those points groups was the fact of people wanted to be able to again build their own reports. And this is beyond just the tabling, but they want to build their own reports, give us access to the data, almost like you're building a SQL query. um,
Hmm.
So, and maybe I want to share that with the community at whole. Because again, there's a lot of people doing the similar thing. So that concept of being able to create a template for a report and then sharing that with everybody else in the community,
Hmm.
we implemented that. Now, what that allowed us to do is, we originally had something like 30, 40 canned reports, out of the box reports. We
Hmm.
shrunk that down to like 15. So these are the standard reports. You can go modify them, you can go enhance them, you can go build your own. So those user groups really surfaced, a good number of the feedback and the ideas that we had. We also did webinars and showing people the progress throughout the way, kept getting feedback and hearing new ideas and what other struggles were showing up. But those user groups were really key, getting in front of folks to hearing what their pain points were as we were talking about what the plan of migration is going to be.
So interesting. Yeah, getting out and talking to your actual users and finding out their needs and wants. What a surprise. But it's interesting to me. I'm right because people still don't do that, right? And
No,
talking about that and how much learning there really is from those. And I'm curious as far as so you were there. Did you bring your engineers, designers, other folks in your team with you? Was it just you? Like, how did you guys approach these groups?
with,
And
with with the user groups, it was more often than not, it was myself and another product manager from the team.
okay,
And, and the goal there was not to solution, right? We wanted to hear what people were really struggling with, what people were really the pain points, and understand them, so that then we could bring what they were trying to do. I always say I don't need people telling me they need a blue button. I need to understand what that problem is that they're trying to solve. Um, and hearing that directly, working with my colleagues, and bringing that back, then talking to our designers, then talking to our developers, like, here's what we heard, here's what we think is going to help solve that problem. Um, that's not to say, other problems, other scenarios where we tried to do, where we had to do similar things. Yeah, we folded in engineers, we folded in our design folks as they come. Where I am today, we have a whole team dedicated towards user research. My group would be nowhere without Tina and Tori today. It's the scale at this point, right? You have to get in front of more people. So, but back then it was really that personal touch is what I like to call it. We built a really good relationship with our community base, and they were, I think, a little bit more open to their product management team than they would have been to folks they weren't really interacting with.
And I just want to highlight that point you made. I think it's key. You went out talking to users about their pain, their struggles, what they were trying to accomplish, not just taking ideas, solutions. So you're speaking
Yeah.
like, a true like jobs to be done sort of thinker, right? What is the customer trying to achieve and why? And understanding that so that you guys as experts in developing reporting and solutions can then address those needs. That's a
And it,
key
and it
point.
wasn't hard to pull it out of them. They were very willing to give us the information. Reporting can be polarizing for a lot of people. It's never good enough. It's never enough. And I think what we ended up giving them as an offering, I really think met the vast majority of people's needs. And I think the results kind of borne out from it when we started looking at the satisfaction scores and the contributions the community was making to sharing their own templates with each other. I mean, the fact that people were willing to do that just made it easier for other people to adopt. So
So we did get a comment, or I guess more of a comment from James here, but um, he's saying how it seems easier to discuss solutions than succinctly describing the problem to be solved. I couldn't agree more. I don't know. What do you think of this?
I think it's the easy thing to go to, right? Everybody, because we all go straight to how do we solve the problem? What do we solve? And it's a natural inclination, but I think understanding the problem is where our time is better suited. Because again, when we were talking to these folks about reporting, we heard customizing. We want to be able to tweak things, and then we took that as, all right, well, we know people want to add columns, but what if they just want to create a whole nother report? Do they really have to come to us? Do I have to build 50 out? I don't want to maintain 50 out of the box reports. So hearing that fact that customization was key to them, it's like, well, what could we do to, you're spitballing at that point. What could we do so they can just create their own reports? If Kushal, our development's like, well, we could do this. We're like, let's move on that. Let's see if that goes and takes us anywhere. And we explored it, and it seemed like it was working. It was working. Got other people involved. That's awesome. Then we started talking about it with those customers,
Mhm.
bringing it back to the audience. You're getting that validation. It's like they were excited for that piece of it. And some of them were, some of them were thinking they could build businesses around it. I could go out and build you your report, Zach, and here you go, right?
Wow.
So, but for the standard, our normal customers, they saw that as we were empowering them, and it's self-service. You're not relying upon us to build the report. Once you have the knowledge of how to build them, if we're missing something, build it yourself. You have the tools to do it. So
That's so cool. Right. Start with the problem, think about a good solution, build it, and then you start explaining the solution and how people, how it actually
yeah,
solves the problem. And then other people start envisioning. Yeah. And we're not, people love solutions, but we're not all experts in the solutions, right? So
right.
relying on the experts to come up with great solutions to a known problem. So tell us a little bit about like what was the result of this? What happened as far as the reporting tools and
So
functionality?
I will say it still took us a year to finally migrate everybody off, and some of it was, some people were going kicking and screaming. But at the end point, it was, our contract was up with the other people. We couldn't offer it to you anymore if we wanted to, and some of it
Okay.
was we were very selective over the years building customized reports. So it was kind of those last folks who had customized reports done by us that we had to address and take care of and make sure that they could continue forward in the manners that they needed to. But otherwise, I mean, the results of it when we went, and, when we started continuing to go to those user groups and talking about other subjects, people would always come up and say, that reporting stuff, that was a good ad, and we were like I said,
Mm,
we weren't trying to get to parity. We were knocking off ideas and roadmap items we had heard about before, and now was just the time we could take it to bring it. So it was parity plus, and that's really what they just lost. Oop, there we come back.
right.
Um, it was parity plus, and people understood that we were hearing them and listening to their needs, and finally we were able to deliver on some of them. So I always, one of my colleagues, another Don, a different Don, we used to comment about how we could walk down our user groups and be we were treated like rock stars, high-fiving people. So it was a good relationship builder. So
That's fantastic. And what those ones that were sort of dragged, kicking and screaming, the ones that were resisting, how did you manage those? Did you do anything special to address, their concerns? Oh, hopefully I'll join back in. It looks like.
I think I lost you there for a moment, Zach. Sorry
Oh
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, no worries. I don't know if you heard my question, but what did you do with those customers that were sort of, as you said, you had to drag kind of kicking and screaming? Were you able to address their needs so that they no longer were kicking and screaming, or how did you handle them?
I don't know if you can hear me, but you're kind of broken up there.
Oh, I can hear you fine.
I don't know.
Sorry about
Is
that.
there
We're having a technical. I can hear you. Can you hear me now, Jim?
Fortunately, it's still breaking up for me, Zach. Sorry.
Oh, it
It's
is.
kind of
Oh,
coming that I'm hearing that robot voice, and I'm just trying to see if there's anything on my end I can do to take care of it.
any better?
That's a little bit better, yeah. Or at least it's
Okay.
back for now. So what was that last question?
Sorry about that. Okay, yeah. So I was saying, what did you do with those customers that were kicking and screaming? Did you do anything special to kind of bring them along, or just ignore them, or how did you handle those customers that you said that you had to drag along?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up there, and I don't know if I heard something around would I do anything different. I will ask that question of myself. Maybe that's what you had asked me, so I apologize if that's not the question. Um, One of the pieces of feedback that we weren't able to incorporate for our clients, it was really addressing the power users. So it just came down to a timeline and capacity issue. Um, oh, yeah. So maybe if you were asking about kicking and screaming customers, for kicking and screaming customers, it was a lot of getting other customers to help us show them that they were working, getting other folks to be champions and to help us move along. Showing them the power and the benefits of the new system. So they were once we started getting about the 8th month mark of this migration, we actually had clients of ours, gentlemen I spoke of before, Don and Josh, who are actually
Mhm.
running their own webinars helping people move forward, getting them to understand the power and the benefits of the new system versus the old. So we built a champion network. And then for us, we were listening to those folks. What is it about the old system that they really thought they needed? Um, for some of them, it was different types of filtering capabilities, different types of sorting mechanisms on the reports that maybe we hadn't fold into our phase one. So we told them we would put those on the roadmap and make sure that they were there by before we hit the year mark on our plan, and allow them to do that. So it was trying to adjust some minor pain points, and get them to move along.
Gotcha. And can you hear me now? Okay, Jim? Is it better?
It's still a little robot-y on my side.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, my last question then for you, Jim, really is, you started addressing it, is what would you do differently if you could? Like, how would you, if you could do this again, what would you approach, or what would you do differently?
Now you came through crystal clear. It's
Oh,
always when
really?
we get
Right at the
something
end.
finally
Okay.
caught up to. Yeah, so I think what would I do differently? I think there's again, if you're talking to 100 people, but you're talking about a client base of over 2,000 clients, is it a I would love to get to more folks, and talk to more people. But there's a point where you actually have to make a decision and move forward, right? You can get caught in that data paralysis.
Mm,
There's always more people you could talk to. You could always find out more. But I think we were seeing trends, and that allowed us to start moving forward. I think from a technical side of things, we purposely kind of ignored, I'll call them the power users. We had people that wanted us to just give them a SQL editor. Let me write my own queries. But we knew the majority of our clients weren't going to be happy with that. That was going to be too far beyond their skill set. And frankly, we didn't want them to be SQL experts to write these queries to get the reports. So we found, again, alternatives. Um, in the long run, those people that wanted to write SQL were fine with the fact that they could create their own templates. They could use other pieces of it that were more powerful. So I think we addressed their needs, but also keeping in mind, the 85% of our population who is not going to be savvy enough, or even frankly, they don't need to develop that skill set enough to use it, right? They just need to be able to get in the system, trust the data coming in, and use it downstream in their other processes. So
interesting. I love it. I love how customer focused you are on this whole process, but that doesn't always mean doing everything every customer asks. So some of these power users were asking for stuff that ultimately you addressed their needs, but maybe didn't do exactly what they were asking. And being a product manager means making trade-off decisions, right? And yeah,
that's our day to day, where we have to kind of figure out. We always say it's like, what do you say no to? But there's ways to say no nicely and politely, and then you redirect people. We're not doing this because we're doing this, and here's why, right?
yeah,
It's that rationale of here's why. Most people, once you tell them that, they understand it. Most people will understand and follow you along, and it's still on you to execute and deliver. Don't get me wrong. So that's where I feel like at that company at that time, we built up that trust with folks by telling people, we're not going to do this. We're doing this. Why? And we're going to do it by this date. And we met those dates. We had a very good machine behind us. So we got a well-oiled, agile system that just allowed us to deliver in a predictable manner. So, which came with a lot of team building back in the day. So,
that's fantastic. Interesting story. Love it. I do want to
yeah.
see if any other questions. I know there's a slight delay, so please enter them in the chat now. If I don't see any other questions, we can wrap up. As I always tell folks, so this will stay up on LinkedIn. So you continue the conversation there, putting in chat questions for Jim or myself. I hope actually, as you're listening, you learned at least one new thing from the story that Jim shared. I know I did. I love your customer centricity, and sometimes saying no is the thing you do, as long as you explain the rationale, right? And
Yeah.
people can come along. So if I don't see
Yeah,
any other questions, yeah, I'll go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was just it's the rationale, it's the prioritization. You want to make sure you're moving them forward, your clients, as much as you still have your stakeholders internally you're beholden to, right? You got to make sure the business is moving in the right direction too. So it's finding that balance for both of us, for everybody to move forward. We want win-win scenarios, and hopefully we can achieve that, like I said, 85% of the time for our clients too.
It's probably the hardest part of being a product manager.
That is
It's
it's one of
balancing
them,
all
that's
the
for
different
sure.
stakeholders. I don't think Gen
Absolutely.
AI is going to be taking that over anytime soon, right?
Uh,
So,
I hope not.
so with that, let's wrap up. As I tell our listeners, right, stay tuned for our next Product Insiders event. We'll be here again right here on LinkedIn. And of course, if you need any help leveraging customer insights to navigate tough product decisions, please feel to reach out on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to chat as always. So until next time, I'm your host, Zach Lyons with Agile Innovation Advisors. So take care, everyone. And again, Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Zach. It's been a lot of fun.